Right, the final machine we're going to use for this number one is the pillar drill. We're going to do two things on the pillar drill for this. By the way, I forgot to mention when using the disc sander, the limitations, obviously it's good for external rounds, so you can't do anything concave like this, but you also can't really do much with a long straight flat like that. You just haven't quite got the radius on the disc to be able to manage stuff like that. So use a hand sanding board, which are in the desk behind us on the video. So they'll be able to sand that internal corner nice and flat. For this radius, internal concave radius, I'm going to use a bobbin. So a round sanding block like that, which can go onto the pillar drill like so. Now this is a keyless chuck. Clockwise opens it, so it's upside down, it's the other way around to normal. Anti-clockwise to tighten it up. Just give it a little turn like that. If you turn this anti-clockwise as well, just make sure it's nice and tight like that. Now, I could be sanding on the bed here, I can move the bed up, but obviously I'm not going to be able to get the bed right up to this, I'll be sanding the bed itself. I want to really sand it there, but I won't be able to get a right angle if I just stand in mid-air, and it's a bit sketchy holding it straight like that. So we'll use a jig, which is this thing here. So it might be hanging in the front of the pillar plinth like that. You can move the table up and down like this. If you unscrew the lever on this side, it makes it nice and easy. Or if it's all set up at the right height, just put the bobbin and the clock jig in place like that. Oop. And just make sure that is overlapping so you can sand right down to the edge of this number one. We'll also want to make sure this is secured, so I'm going to use a G-clamp which is hanging here. And again, just remember, if you're screwing upside down, anti-clockwise closes is the opposite way around to normal. And because the whole table is tight, isn't in tight, we just want to make sure this lever down here is done up nice and tight as well. So it does actually take quite a bit of force to stop this moving. And then when you've done that, as I haven't, just make sure that this isn't touching the board, so we're not sanding that board. Now, this isn't connected to the central extraction, unfortunately. It should be, but we've fashioned up this independent extractor unit here, which is basically a big hood. It spins round this direction, so it should theoretically suck up all the dust that way. But you'll also be wearing masks this year anyway, so it's a good idea to be mindful of MDF dust. It's not particularly nice stuff. So again, it's going to be a bit of noise with the vacuum on here when I do this. So when this is all nice and set up, good to go. We're not going to use the guard for this. It's going to be making sure it's all set like that. So stand on this side so it's on the trailing edge. Just be aware it's got a bit of a wobble to it. So this exercise is really about just setting up the pillar drill station. Not really bothered about any beautifully sanded edge, but you can see quite quickly you can get a nice finish. Right, so once you've demonstrated that, set it all up nicely, we'll just take this all off. It's more about the setup than the actual use. Put everything back where it lives. Try not to leave anything heavy on the inside here because the vibration will tend to gravitate towards your feet. You don't really want that or a machine vise landing on your trainers. Okay, so clockwise to open it off. Pop that back there, and we'll just put this back there. If you've got any excess dust, there will normally be a bin here as well. Just tap it in, don't blow it away. So just make sure the dust is tapped into the bin nicely. Right, so we'll now drill just a hole here with about a 6 or a 7mm drill bit. There's a range of drill bits here. You should be able to find the ones you want, but if you haven't got one, come and speak to me or Arthur. If there's one missing and you can't find it over there, we'll replace it. So we're looking for about a 6mm drill bit. That, again, like the bobbin, anti-clockwise closes it. So just make sure when you turn it as well, just give yourself a quick little visual that you've got it in between the three jaws of chuck. Make sure that's good. You also want to make sure you're going to drill into this hole here. It's not acceptable really to hope that you're going to drill into those side slots. It's really important to make sure, first of all, the height is set up so that you can drill all the way through. Even though I know it's not going to drill into the table like that, I'm going to use a piece of sacrificial wood as well, which there's one down here. Now the reason is, supporting the work you're going to drill into means that when the drill bit comes out of the bottom of it, it's not going to push an ugly hole out like that. It's especially bad if you're cutting plywood or something like that. It'll splinter as it comes out the other end. Whereas if you support it like that, stop the number one raising up when it pushes through on the bottom, you'll get a much cleaner exit hole. I'll demonstrate in fact. So first of all, we'll just do a cut like that. Now I'm going to take the least comfortable lever on this wheel, so the plunger. So the chances are by the time I'm drilling in, this might be more comfortable to use. Now notice where my hands are. Too far away and you haven't got enough grip on the thing, especially as it lifts up. And obviously too close, you don't want to have your fingers too close for obvious reasons. Okay, and again, now just tip that into the bin, which isn't here, but in the meantime I'll just put that there. You'll see that exit hole is not very neat, because I just drilled straight into mid-air. However, if I put this on like that, and go for the crosshair, it should be a lot easier now. I mean, you should be able to get a much cleaner hole. So I tend to bring the bit down, moving quite, when it's switched on you can see how it moves and if it's got a slight wobble to it. I'm going to look down this line of the crosshair and then shift my head over and make sure it's lined up on that side. So look down the crosshair either way and you can tell if it's lined up. Now holding it firmly, and then drilling right the way through. Again, remember if the bin's here as it should be, you won't have as much offcut there, but don't blow that away. You'll notice that's a much cleaner hole than that one, just because it's supported. Now, I should have covered the safety first, obviously, on this machine. We're using our hands to hold the work. Now, there's no kind of definitive rule about what you can hold in your hand. Some places they say clamp everything. Obviously it's quite difficult to clamp loads of work down and then align it up. If you're going to just do a quick hole on something big like this, it's fine. The first row of drill bits up to 6.5mm, it's fine to drill into big piece of wood. If you're going to drill something like that that's really small, you probably want to think about clamping it. We've got these big heavy machine vices. As you can see, they haven't been looked after. They're quite old anyway, they've been abused over the years, but try and make sure again what you're drilling into is that void and not into the work. Again, if you want to support it on the underside to get a neater hole, it's a good idea. But if you're ever drilling metal, always clamp it. We don't ever want to see anyone using drilling into metal, holding it just with their hands. It needs to be clamped with either a G-clamp or this machine vice, or ideally both. You can clamp the G-clamp onto the machine vice there. Just make it dead steady. Plastic as well. We strongly advise clamping down plastic. If it snatches and spins around, it can be quite sharp. It's quite a dangerous thing if you've got out of control, if it lets go. And you'll also find with acrylic, it's quite brittle. As the drill bit slices its way through the bottom, sometimes it will snatch and lift up like that, and as well as being dangerous, that can destroy the work that you're doing and crack it. So be careful with plastics and metals, and always use a clamp when using metals. If you've got any specialist big holes, we use Forstner bits, which are over on the other on the other drill station there. If I just zoom in on the camera, you should be able to see it. So those numbers there, the Forstner bits, just focus it. They are for cutting big holes in wood. Again, it's really important to clamp it down, and when using big drill bits like that, we do use the guard. If you're using metal as well, we'll use the guard as well. So it's important to use the right drill bit for the job. These general purpose drill bits will drill wood, metal and plastic, so they're good for everything. Right, the final bit of your workshop induction is the scroll saw on the central bench here. It's considerably safer than a bandsaw in many ways, and you'll find secondary students will often use. You might, some of you might have already used secondary school Hegner saws, they're sometimes called. They are safer, but you've still got to treat them with a lot of respect. First thing to clear up is there is a bit of a myth that you can't cut yourself on the blade. Just don't believe that. Believe me, you can. Now they can cut much tighter circles than the bandsaw. Remember, the bandsaw manages a CD size, no tighter than that. This can really get into these kind of details of a jigsaw tab. But it's still quite a challenge to cut that tight a circle. I might not even demonstrate it that well in this, but we'll see how it gets on. Another thing to really bear in mind is the saw is reciprocal, so it will go up and down, unlike the bandsaw which just goes down. So it really is important to hold your work firmly down as you turn it around. Now, if I were you, if you get a fresh offcut like this, it's probably best to start in the middle, just because the long one, well, this one will actually go right the way around, but it's just easier to handle if you hold both hands either side of it. So as with the bandsaw, you want to be lining the line that you're cutting straight into the blade like that. Everything that goes into the blade, if you're aiming to get it straight on, it's the first way of keeping on the line. Trust me, it is very difficult to try and get this exactly cut. So hold it firmly. You'll find if you're moving, you'll get the whole thing rattling up and down quite a bit more, especially if you're turning on the spot. You can turn on the spot a lot, well, unlike the bandsaw, you can actually turn on the spot. But just let the saw do its work up and down, cutting a bit of freeing itself up. Don't move it too quickly. You've got a handy light here, on-off controls here. It helps have it powered on up at the mains. So on button here, it's quite a useful torch to see what you're doing. And then the speed control here. Now, you might find if you go too fast, it might start burning the wood. So there we go on with the speed like that. So see, I can line it up, start with straight on. Just always keep that front, the line in front, going in perpendicular on the blade. Now this is the point where you might have to swap your hands around like that. Now I'm trying ideally to keep my fingers outside of the black tab on the bed of the machine. You shouldn't need to have your hands any closer than that. But be prepared to really turn it more than you expect and keep that line in the front perpendicular. So it's always forcing in like that. Now you notice because I'm holding firmly like that, it's not flapping about. Hands around like that without moving it. Just let it do the work as well, don't force it through too quick. There you go. Now, I might just blame the fact that the dust was covering the line. I couldn't quite see that line, but generally that's quite white on course like that. Like I said, you couldn't actually see that line. If you do get dust like that, don't blow it. Remember not to blow it, it just goes airborne. Just switch the machine off and brush it off with your hand like that. So if you do find it quite difficult to cut, maybe it's wandering quite a bit or flapping about, the two things to do is to check the tension first of all. So it should really turn the power off at the mains here before touching the blade. And you can give it a little pluck like a stringed instrument. That sounds nice and taut, so there shouldn't be any problem of it wandering about. The other problem, some people fit these the wrong way round, so make sure the teeth are always pointing down. Now should you wish to do, we don't do this in the demonstration, but just so I can show you how it works. If you want to cut, say, this is just an offcut obviously, if I were to cut from inside here out, obviously if I cut that way and then go inside that's easier, but if you want to cut inside a hole, you need to take the blade off. To do that, we just take this lever up, which will make it nice and loose. There's no need to turn it. If it's tensioned correctly, just leave it as. Just undo the quick release, push down, and the pins will allow the blade to come out. Now you might find the whole thing will come out like that. Fitting it back in where the slot is, again, I'll just move the camera closer so you can see. So you might find removing the insert just makes life a bit easier when fitting the blade again. So obviously the blade, remember the teeth point down. If you can see, not quite, but yeah, teeth are always pointing down. I'm going to fit that through the work, and then there are two slots. One allows for the blade to cut this way, and the other one a bit more like a sewing machine where you would line the blade up like that. It's pretty obvious which way round the slot goes, but just make sure you've got the top slot here and the bottom slot corresponding. So I'm going to fit that one in first at the bottom and push that down, fit it at the top, and don't forget to tighten it up again with a lever at the back, like so. So with it all fitted like that, remember to put the insert back in, like so, push it down, power back on, and away you should go. So just make sure the polycarbonate guard is down like that. I know it can make life a bit harder to see what you're doing, but if you reposition the light so you can see what you're doing, it should be fine. Generally, you don't want to have your fingers going underneath the polycarbonate guard. And then, just to show you what it's like if you don't hold it firmly, although this is quite a good blade so it works much better, but if you don't hold it firmly, just flap about like that. You risk breaking the blade a bit more. So that's the scroll saw. That will be the final part of your 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 inductions. So you will have to use all 4 machines and 5 processes in order to get your health and safety certificate complete and for you to use the workshop. Do have a recap on these videos if you missed anything. It's important when you come in to do your 1-to-1